Okay, so I saw this on Twitter. It says unpopular or popular opinion: music in the 2020s decade so far beats both 2000 and 2010's decade. Y'all just stuck on nostalgia. So this really got me thinking, does it really? Am I just kind of stuck on the now because I love a lot of the music that's come out in the recent years? What is going to come out on top for me? And also let me know what you guys think of this down below in the comments. But what I prepared for you today is I just made quick collages of like some of my favorite albums from each decade. There's a lot of albums I like. These are just some of the first ones that came to my mind at least. And then I'll try to pick what is my favorite and then ultimately answer, this kind of prompt that's there. So first off, here's all my picks for the 2000s. Like I said, there's many albums that I love in general, and especially this decade, but these are just the first ones that came to my mind at least. And so first up, we had Beyonce. This is like my favorite sophomore album to ever be released, so I definitely had to go with this one. Kitty Cat is one of my favorite Beyonce songs. You have Freakum Dress, Green Light, Deja Vu. Like, there was just a lot of great cuts on this album. There's funk, pop, R&B. Like, it was just a really great album. A lot of up-tempos, hit after hit after hit. I even like Check on it as well. And then next up, we had Mariah Carey, The Emancipation of Mimi. I mean, what else can I say? Best comeback album ever. We Belong Together, #1, 14 weeks. You know the story. Some of my favorite songs on this album: Shake It Off, I thought was a really fun single. Fly Like a Bird is a great gospel song from Mariah that I always really enjoy listening to. Circles is incredible. I love Stay the Night. I mean, I just think that her vocals on here were top tier. Incredible production, incredible writing by Mariah as always. And it's just like, if you want to sum up the 2000s in an album, you have to pick this one. So I had to have it up there for sure. Mariah's my favorite artist of all time. Next up, we got Janet Jackson, All For You. I mean, we had the smash hits, All For You, one of the best pop songs ever. Doesn't Really Matter. It's one of my favorite Janet Jackson songs, top 5 all time in terms of Janet's discography. And I also really love the video for that. And yeah, you also had great stuff like Trust to Try, which was her getting back into a rock bag again, which I really liked. Someone to Call My Lover is really great and deserves a little bit more appreciation, I think. I really like Truth on here. China Love has always been a favorite for me. We have Would You Mind, which is a song that only someone like Janet could really pull off. So I love this album. A great pop album, super strong for the most part. Aaliyah, Self-Titled. No skips, no skips. Rock the Boat is a classic. I love Try Again, #1, solely off radio airplay, by the way. Oh, she definitely ate that up. And then What If has always been one of my favorite songs, and her getting into that rock bag. You have I Can Be, which I really liked. Never No More, I Care For You, like More Than a Woman. I mean, there was just so many highlights on this album, I thought. And so this had to be high up there for me, and just that electro R&B and just how timeless that this still is. I love the album. And then next up, fionaapple. And this was Destroying Machine. A lot of people don't care for this album, but I'm one of the few people who actually likes it, and it's one of her best albums in my opinion. So some of my favorites on this album, Get Him Back is like my favorite song by her. And then I also really quite enjoyed the title track, and that was just something that was really relatable to me, for example. So there's a lot of great stuff on this album, I thought. Britney Spears, Blackout, I mean, classics. Toy Soldier was very underrated on this album, as well as Heaven on Earth. Why Should I Be Sad is one of my favorite Britney Spears songs of all time. There's just so much great material that's going on here with all the electro pop, shout out to Danger and all the other producers, Break the Ice, Radar, what an album. Next up, Continuum, John Mayer. Really love this album. John Mayer as a person is trash. He got to be held accountable, and I'll have that point. This album, though, I thought was really great. It stopped this train about being afraid of getting older and everything that kind of comes with that, waiting on the world to change. I can appreciate the political sentiments there and what he's saying. And I also really like stuff like Vultures. Like, I thought that was a really cool piece on this album as well. And Belief is certainly a favorite for me. Like, there's just really a lot that I liked about this album, especially his guitar work. Nice vocals in here, nice songwriting, right on the money. Like, if you wanted a Johnmayer album to, like, get into, I would say pick this one, because it really showcases off what he does best quite well, and he's just a really talented musician, although he's a horrible person. And then we got Brandy, Full Moon. This album is her best album. The electro R&B on here is absolutely insane. Some of my favorites on here: What About Us, When You Touch Me is her best song. The vocals in there alone were just absolutely incredible. It's Not Worth It was amazing. He is a great gospel piece on this album, and All in Me. So those are my 2000s picks. Okay, now on to my 2010s picks that came to mind. First up, we got SZA Control. I mean, definitely one of the best albums of the 2010s, right? Supermodel, Prom is one of my favorite SZA songs all time. Drew Barrymore was a great song. Go Gina, Garden, like, this is a pretty great album. Don't care for Doves in the Wind, and then I didn't care for love galore, really. You know, the alternate version was better. But yeah, this album ate. Next up, Caution, Mariah Carey. Top 5 Mariah Carey all-time album for me. I listen to it all the time. Some of my favorites, GTFO, 8th Grade, Giving Me Life. Like, this was Mariah adapting to the times quite well, I thought, and this was a really great album. So, Caution, y'all didn't get it enough, but, you know, I love it. Next up, Taylor Swift, 1989. As I said before, this is one of my pop bibles, one of my favorite pop albums, one of her best albums. Like, this album, like, kind of means something to me. I love it, I really do. And whenever pop albums come out and y'all say it's a pop bible, I'm comparing it to this. I'm comparing it to Daydream Mariah Carey, and I'm comparing it to a Janet Jackson, Rhythm Nation 1814. So some great songs on this. You know, the singles we're giving. Shake It Off is a smash hit for a reason. I love Blank Space, of course. Wildest Dreams is a moment, and we also had underrated cuts like I Know Places and Clean. So this is a really great album. Only had like 1 or 2 skips off this thing. Love it to pieces. Next up, we got Justin Timberlake. This is a 2020 experience. Strawberry Bubblegum is a career highlight. I love that other section at the end, and it's just such a cool song. Tunnel Vision, he was in his bag with that one as well. Super cool production. Blue Ocean Floor, I feel like is very underrated on this album as well. Really like Suit and Tie featuring Jay-Z. Only song that I skipped was Let the Groove Get In because that song was trash. But, you know, this is a really strong album, so gotta give him his 10s. Arianagrande, Sweetener. What an album. What an album. Her best album. Her best album. Rem is one of my favorite Ariana Grande songs. It truly is. And then you also have Get Well Soon, which is one of her best closers, and the vocal layering on that. Mariah to her well. Mariah to her well. Successful was a great moment every time. I mean, this is a very strong album if you take away Blazed and The Light Is Coming, which I do. I pretend those songs don't exist because they were trash. But yeah, this was experimental for her. She needed this album. She did. If she didn't release this album, her career would be in a different place. But, you know, she took that risk. And then you also have No Chance Left to Cry. They ate. Lemonade, Beyonce. Daddy Lessons, we love. Sandcastles, of course. Love Drought, Sorry, and the list goes on. That was a great album, very personal moment for Beyonce, and she served it again. Lorde, Melodrama, some of my favorites off of this album. I love Green Light. Supercut is an amazing song. Sober 2, Melodrama, Liability, The Reprise, amazing album. Last up, Kellyclarkson, Meaning of Life. I love the title track. Medicine was a great moment on this one as well. Love So Soft. Yeah, there was a lot to like about this album. There was. So those are my picks for the 2010s. Last up, we got my picks for the 2020s. So first up, we got Folklore by Taylor Swift. I mean, I just think that this is her best album from a songwriting standpoint. Having stuff like The Last Great American Dynasty, which is one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs all time. Invisible String, The One, Cardigan, The Lakes was a superior piece of writing. And I like the production on here a lot from Aaron Dessner. And you know what Jack Antonoff does do for the most part. Exile, I still think is very overrated. And that was my opinion there, but I love this album. I think that it's her best album by far. Renaissance Beyonce was the best album of that year, and it's not even close, okay? Virgo's Groove, Plastic Off the Sofa, I'm That Girl. I mean, the material was materialing, okay? She ate this album. SZA SOS, I love Snooze, Kill Bill, Ghost in the Machine featuring Phoebe Bridgers on here as well. Gone Girl very much reminds me of Control in a good way. This is a very strong album, I thought. Harry's House, great pop album. Music for a Sushi Restaurant, Late Night Talking was certainly a favorite. Little Freak was a great moment. I liked Matilda a lot on this album. Like, no skips. And I'm still not tired of As It Was, surprisingly enough. We got some fionaapple, Vegetable Coders, okay? This one, the title track definitely aged Mika's a favorite. Rack of His, Newspaper, Ladies, Alternative, definitely giving of that time. I love fionaapple, as stated before. Next up, we got Flomilli, so this is Ho Wise You Here. I mean, just so many great songs. In the Party, Beef Flow Mix, May I, Pussycat Doll. Like, there's no skips on this. Just straight fire, great vocal deliveries on here. And I really like the writing on here. Production was top tier. Like, she definitely ate. Ungodly Hour, Chloe and Halle, some of my favorites on here. Underwhelmed was actually a little bit underrated, I fear. And I also really love Baby Girl. That's my favorite song on the album. Do It, of course. Tipsy, Busy Boy, amazing. Lady Gaga, Chromatica, some of my favorites. Rain on Me with Ariana Grande. I also really liked Free Woman was a great moment on this album. Sour Candy with Blackpink. And that album doesn't get enough. I'm sorry. I'll do too much on Chromatica. That's one of the best albums of 2020. A few more albums from this decade I wanted to mention. Miley Cyrus' Plastic Hearts was certainly a favorite for that year for me. Some of my favorites on here. Hate Me is my favorite song on the album. You also got What the Fuck Do I Know, which was a great opener. Plastic Hearts, a song, was one of my favorites as well. I really liked High on this album, Night Crawling featuring Billy Idol. I mean, Miley and this rock bag, she ate her best album to date in my opinion. Olivia Rodrigo, Guts, Bad Idea, Right, a banger it really was. And then I also really quite enjoyed stuff like Ballad of a Homeschool Girl, her getting into her rock bag. All American Bitch was on this album, Making the Bed. Vampire was one of my favorite songs that was released that year. Arianagrande, Eternal Sunshine. Y'all do too much on this album. This is a great album. I'm sorry. And so, of course, you have stuff like Supernatural, which is just a pop banger. So I'm glad that we got it. The Boy Is Mine. I like the intro on here a lot. Don't Want to Break Up Again. There's a lot of great offerings. And so now that I've shown you guys some of my favorite picks from every single decade, I've talked through them, I have ultimately came to my decision, which is what I kind of thought at the beginning of this. And they're right about this tweet. Music in the 2020 decade so far is being 2000s and 2010s. And so I do want to have this stipulation, of course, that this decade isn't finished, right? So I have the ability to go through and retrospectively look at all these decades and all the music that was released, okay? And so this decade has to finish up, and maybe once this decade finishes up, I will change my mind. I'm open to that, and maybe I'll leave a pinned comment here in some years, and we'll see what that's giving. But whenever I look through and I was just praising my 2020 albums, and then I even had a couple excess that I was like, I have to talk about these at least. I'm just thinking about how many times those albums have been played for me. Okay, Renaissance by Beyonce is one of my most played albums all time. Okay, I listened to the album on repeat for months. I think that that is an incredible album, and just what she did with that and the cohesion on there alone. Okay, and then we had Folklore, and that was my album of 2020. I love the album to pieces. I can't tell y'all how many times I listened to Cowboy Carter. You know, like those 3 albums alone got a lot of streams from me. They honestly really did. And so when I think about it from that landscape, and then also I forgot about the Harry album. I streamed that one a lot as well, and just appreciating even 2020. It's one of the strongest years for music, and what we got this past year and what I've been appreciating, it has to go to this decade. I feel like it has to go this decade for me at least. For me at least, and like I said, that can change. And 2010's decade, you know, there's been some great stuff. I think what hurts 2010's decade for me a lot is that EDM pop era. Like, there's just albums or songs that artists have made, and then I'm just like, absolutely not. Like, I don't want to hear this anymore is very much of the time. And I'm sure there's going to be trends like that now where that happens, but I'm just so appreciative of everything that's coming out now. And 2000s, there was a lot of great music that I showed you guys. There really was. But right now, I think I'm listening to the newer stuff a little bit more. And it might just be because I'm in this moment right now, you know? And so maybe my opinions will change over time. I don't know if I agree with this entire part at the end saying y'all just stuck on nostalgia, because some people just genuinely prefer stuff. Like, a lot of stuff I'm hearing 2010s, like, yes, some of it like I did listen to at the time and I still really enjoyed it, but like 1989 will always have a special place in my heart. Like, there's albums and artists that are always going to have a special place in my heart and that I love because of nostalgia, TV shows and all that kind of stuff, but that's not the sole reason that I love it. I love it because it's good and because I have that connection too. So some people might be stuck in nostalgia. Some people, maybe they just heard these albums a couple years ago and they're like, I just genuinely like this decade better. So I think it's really up to preference, but I think 2020's decade is winning at least now. At least now. We'll have to see how everything finishes out, the albums that come out, my replay value of everything over time, but I just love the place that a lot of music is out now. And, you know, there's some great stuff. There really is. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What are your favorite albums released in each of these decades? Is there any albums that you feel like I forgot? Hopefully I didn't forget anything too egregious. Like I said, I want to stress that these are albums that just came to my mind, that I just threw in, okay? So, you know, there was that moment there. And I have a whole video sharing my favorite songs from the 2000s that you guys can check it on the channel. And I'm going to do it for the 2010s. I just have to write everything down and get everything organized. But that will be coming soon and for other decades as well. So you guys can check that out. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments and let's continue that conversation.